Suddenly, millions of families began tuning in each week. The Cartwright family's sprawling Ponderosa Ranch, glowing in vibrant color, offered something audiences desperately craved in a turbulent era: stability, justice, and moral clarity. At the center of it all stood Ben Cartwright. Not merely a character, but a symbol. Greene's portrayal of the widowed patriarch radiated authority tempered with compassion. His deep voice, once associated with war casualties, now delivered wisdom at the dinner table. His presence suggested safety. His decisions carried weight. His guidance shaped generations of viewers. But why did audiences trust him so completely? Was it his commanding voice, his quiet dignity, or the emotional gravity shaped by years of reading tragedy on national radio? Ben Cartwright was not written as perfect. He struggled, he doubted, he mourned. Yet he remained steady. And perhaps that steadiness reflected Greene himself, a man molded by pressure, discipline, and resilience. By the mid-1960s, Bonanza had become a global phenomenon. It aired in more than 50 countries and reached an estimated weekly audience of 400 million viewers. Entire families arranged their evenings around the program. In many households, Greene's face became as familiar as a relative's. How does a performer cross that invisible line, from actor to trusted presence? Greene understood something fundamental: authority must feel earned. Every gesture, every pause, every word carried intention. His years as a broadcaster had trained him to speak with precision. His theater background had taught him emotional control. His hardships had given him authenticity. And audiences recognized the difference. The discipline behind the persona. Fame did not soften Greene's relentless work ethic. On set, he was known for professionalism bordering on severity. Scripts were studied meticulously. Scenes were rehearsed repeatedly. He demanded punctuality and preparation from himself and others. Some colleagues initially found him intimidating. Yet many later described his seriousness as protective rather than harsh. He treated the production like a family enterprise, perhaps mirroring the very patriarch he portrayed. Is leadership simply authority, or is it responsibility? Greene believed it was both. He insisted that Bonanza explore meaningful themes: prejudice, justice, family conflict, and social responsibility. At a time when television often avoided controversy, the show tackled issues of racism, poverty, and moral choice. He did not merely want to entertain. He wanted to instruct. And audiences listened. An unexpected musical success. Then came another surprising transformation. In 1964, at the height of Bonanza's popularity, Greene released a spoken-word ballad titled Ringo. The song told the story of the infamous outlaw Johnny Ringo, narrated not sung, delivered in that unmistakable baritone. It reached #1 on the music charts. Consider the improbability: a middle-aged television actor, known for solemn authority, topping popular music rankings dominated by youthful performers. What gave the recording such power? Again, it was the voice. The same resonance that once carried casualty lists now carried storytelling. The same gravity that commanded attention in war broadcasts now held listeners through a 3-minute narrative. Greene released several albums afterward, blending storytelling with music. Though none matched the success of Ringo, they reinforced his identity as a master communicator, a man whose voice alone could shape emotional experience. The cost of authority. Yet even symbols carry private burdens. Greene's demanding career often strained his personal life. Long filming schedules, relentless publicity tours, and the pressure of public expectation left little room for ordinary living. He married twice and raised children, but like many figures of immense responsibility, fictional and real, balancing duty and intimacy proved difficult. Does the image of strength sometimes require personal sacrifice? Friends noted that behind the commanding public persona lived a thoughtful, sometimes reserved individual who valued privacy. He read widely, remained deeply interested in history and science, and rarely spoke publicly about personal struggles. The world saw certainty. He carried complexity. Life after the Ponderosa. When Bonanza finally ended in 1973 after 14 seasons, it marked the end of an era. Few television programs had achieved such cultural impact. Even fewer had defined an actor so completely. For Greene, the question was unavoidable. What happens when the role that defines you disappears? Many performers fade. Some reinvent themselves. Greene chose reinvention. In the late 1970s, he stepped into a dramatically different world, science fiction. He starred as Commander Adama in Battlestar Galactica, portraying the leader of a fleet of human survivors searching for a new home after the destruction of their civilization. Once again, he embodied guidance in crisis. Once again, audiences looked to him for wisdom. The setting had changed, from frontier ranch to distant galaxies, yet the essence remained the same, a figure of calm authority guiding others through uncertainty. Was this coincidence, or had Greene become the very archetype of leadership itself? The character forged in hardship. Looking back, the pattern becomes clear. A childhood defined by strict expectations taught discipline. A deliberate act of rebellion taught independence. War broadcasting taught emotional control. Innovation taught problem-solving. Teaching taught mentorship. Acting taught expression. Each stage shaped the next. Greene's journey was not a sudden rise but a gradual forging, like steel strengthened by repeated fire. And perhaps that explains the deeper mystery. Audiences trusted him because he had lived through pressure. His authority was not performed, it was experienced. A legacy beyond performance. Lorne Greene passed away on September 11, 1987, at the age of 72. Yet his influence endures, not only in television history but in broadcasting itself. Every time a studio counts down to airtime, echoes of his invention remain. Every portrayal of the wise, steady patriarch in modern television owes something to the template he established. Every performance that blends authority with compassion reflects the balance he mastered. But his greatest legacy may be less tangible. He demonstrated that strength and empathy need not conflict. That leadership requires both certainty and understanding. That authority can be grounded in humanity. The story of Lorne Greene's rise to global recognition cannot be explained by a single quality, a single moment, or a single opportunity. It was not merely talent, nor merely timing, nor merely character, but a convergence of all three. His journey reveals how authority is not simply performed, it is cultivated. It is shaped by experience, tested by adversity, and strengthened by conviction. So what truly made Lorne Greene a global patriarch? Was it natural talent, the remarkable voice, the commanding presence that seemed to carry weight even in silence? Was it timing, the rise of television at a moment when societies longed for stability and reassurance? Or was it character, forged through hardship, discipline, and moral clarity? Perhaps the answer lies in their union. Talent opened the door. Timing created opportunity. Character sustained trust. And trust, once earned, transformed an immigrant shoemaker's son into a figure recognized across continents, a presence that millions welcomed into their homes each week. Yet his story also invites a more personal reflection. What defines authority in our own lives? Is it position or integrity? Recognition or resilience? Performance or authenticity? Lorne Greene's life suggests that true authority emerges not from the roles we play, but from the pressures we endure, the choices we make, and the values we uphold when no one is watching. From a modest shoe repair shop in Ottawa to the living rooms of hundreds of millions, his journey reminds us that destiny is rarely predetermined. It is forged, deliberately, stubbornly, and sometimes unexpectedly. And perhaps that is why his voice still resonates. Because beneath the roles, the fame, and the history, it carried something timeless: conviction, stability, and humanity. The shoemaker's son refused his fate, and in doing so, became the father the world never knew it needed. The voice before the fame. Before he became television's most trusted patriarch, before the wide landscapes and frontier morality of the American West defined his public image, Lorne Greene's authority began with something far simpler: sound. His voice. Deep, deliberate, and unmistakably resonant, it carried a gravity that commanded attention. Yet this defining trait did not emerge effortlessly. It was cultivated through discipline, education, and necessity. As a young man, Greene studied chemical engineering at university, a path that promised stability and respectability. But something within him gravitated toward expression rather than calculation. He discovered radio broadcasting, where his voice, steady, measured, and authoritative, quickly distinguished him. During the Second World War, this voice carried a burden few could imagine. As a radio announcer, he delivered casualty reports to a nation waiting anxiously for news from overseas. Each name he read represented a life lost, a family shattered, a story ended. Listeners began calling him the voice of doom. What does it mean to speak tragedy night after night? How does a person carry the emotional weight of an entire nation's grief? For Greene, the experience instilled a profound seriousness. Words were never casual. Speech carried responsibility. Authority demanded sincerity. This early chapter shaped the emotional depth that later defined his performances. When he spoke on screen, audiences sensed authenticity, not an actor reciting lines, but a man who understood the consequences of words. Perhaps this is where trust first took root. From classroom to camera, Greene's journey to international fame did not follow a straight line. Before becoming a household name, he worked as a teacher and mentor, shaping young performers and helping build the future of broadcasting. Teaching requires patience. It requires clarity. It requires leadership without domination. These qualities later defined his most iconic role. Is it possible that authority learned in classrooms translates naturally to leadership on screen? Does guiding students prepare one to guide audiences? Greene's experience as an educator reinforced his belief in discipline and preparation. He approached performance not as spectacle but as responsibility, a philosophy that would soon find its perfect expression. The rise of a television patriarch. From 1964 to 1967, one television series dominated ratings in a way almost unimaginable today. At its peak, nearly 60% of televisions in use were tuned to the Cartwright family. Why did this show resonate so deeply? The answer may lie in the historical moment. The 1960s were marked by rapid social change, cultural upheaval, and growing uncertainty. Traditions were questioned. Institutions were challenged. Many people searched for stability. And on screen stood Ben Cartwright, firm but fair, wise yet vulnerable, compassionate yet unwavering. Greene had never ridden a horse before his audition. Yet he became the world's most recognized cowboy. How does a man unfamiliar with the frontier become its most trusted symbol? The answer again returns to authenticity. He did not play the role as spectacle or bravado. He portrayed a father, a leader who balanced strength with empathy, authority with humanity. Audiences did not simply watch him. They believed him. His portrayal offered reassurance in uncertain times. He represented values many feared were fading: loyalty, responsibility, moral clarity, and family unity. And perhaps that explains his extraordinary impact. He was not merely entertaining viewers, he was providing emotional stability. The cultural moment. Television was still relatively young, and its influence was expanding rapidly. Families gathered around their sets each evening, sharing stories and values transmitted through glowing screens. In such an environment, characters became more than fictional figures. They became companions, guides, even moral references. Why did audiences embrace Greene so completely? Was it the character he portrayed, or the sincerity he brought to it? His performance suggested that authority did not require dominance. True leadership required understanding. A father figure could be strong without being harsh, commanding without being cold. This balance resonated deeply with viewers seeking reassurance amid societal transformation. The cowboy who beat the Beatles, almost. In 1964, at the height of his fame, something remarkable happened. Greene released a spoken-word Western ballad titled Ringo. He did not sing it, he narrated it. The piece told a dramatic frontier story in the measured cadence that had become his signature. Unexpectedly, it reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. This was the era of Beatlemania, a cultural wave reshaping global music. Yet for 1 week, a 49-year-old television cowboy topped the charts. What does this reveal about cultural influence? How does a spoken narrative outperform popular music? Perhaps it demonstrates the power of presence. Greene's voice itself had become an experience, familiar, reassuring, and compelling. History often highlights grand movements while overlooking surprising moments like this. Yet such details reveal how deeply audiences trusted him. His voice alone could captivate millions. Conflict behind the scenes. Success rarely arrives without tension. Even at the height of the show's popularity, conflict emerged among its cast. One co-star chose to leave, feeling artistically constrained by the role. He sought greater creative freedom, believing the character limited his growth. Greene responded not with resentment but with pragmatic advice: remain, build financial security, and pursue artistic ambitions later. This response reflects an important dimension of his character: steadiness in the face of disagreement. Is wisdom the ability to see beyond immediate frustration? Does experience teach patience where ambition demands change? Years later, perspectives shifted. Time reshaped judgments, revealing the complexity of professional decisions. Greene's response demonstrated leadership grounded in empathy rather than authority. The loss that changed everything. In 1972, tragedy struck the production when a beloved cast member died unexpectedly following surgery. He was only 43. For Greene, the loss was deeply personal. The show's on-screen family mirrored genuine bonds formed through years of collaboration. The series chose to address the death within its storyline, one of the first major productions to acknowledge such loss openly. The decision reflected realism and respect, but it also changed the emotional foundation of the show. Ratings declined. Within a year, the network canceled the series. Greene later reflected that perhaps the show should have ended immediately after the loss. Some families cannot survive the absence of a central pillar. Is this true beyond fiction? Do communities, organizations, and even nations depend on individuals whose absence transforms everything? The experience revealed Greene's sensitivity to the emotional truth underlying performance. For him, authenticity mattered more than continuation. Reinvention among the stars. Many actors struggle to escape defining roles, yet Greene achieved something rare. He reinvented his image while preserving his essence. In 1978, he stepped into a new patriarchal role, a commander leading humanity's last survivors through space after the destruction of their world. The setting was futuristic, the circumstances extraordinary, yet the core qualities remained unchanged: calm leadership, moral clarity, and steady guidance. Why did producers repeatedly cast him as a figure of authority? Because audiences trusted him. From wartime radio to the frontier to deep space, Greene embodied reassurance. He represented continuity in changing worlds. What does it mean when a performer becomes synonymous with stability itself? Is such authority earned through skill alone, or through the consistency of character? Beyond performance, Greene's contributions extended beyond acting. He participated in documentary projects, educational initiatives, and innovative broadcasting techniques. His work reflected curiosity and intellectual engagement as much as artistic ambition. He understood media not merely as entertainment but as influence, a means of shaping perception and culture. Is the greatest impact of a public figure found in visible achievements or in the quieter contributions behind the scenes? His career suggests both matter. The final chapter. In September 1987, complications from surgery led to respiratory failure. He was 72. His passing marked the end of an era, yet the impact of his work continued. Generations who had grown up hearing his voice carried its resonance forward. His gravestone bears a striking inscription: "The world's best-loved father. The great voice of Canada. Not inventor. Not broadcaster. Not actor. The father." What does it mean for a performer's legacy to be defined by emotional connection rather than professional titles? What kind of life earns such remembrance? Even in death, the identity audiences cherished most remained central: the nature of authority. So what was the secret behind Lorne Greene's extraordinary influence? A shoemaker's son who challenged expectations. A broadcaster who spoke the language of loss. A teacher shaping future talent. A television father trusted by millions. A narrator whose voice dominated the airwaves. A leader guiding fictional civilizations through crisis. Yet beneath these achievements lay a consistent quality: steadiness. In times of war, people needed gravity. In times of cultural upheaval, they needed guidance. In stories of cosmic survival, they needed hope. He provided all three. His authority did not rely on spectacle. It rested on authenticity, the sense that his words reflected genuine conviction. The questions his life leaves behind. Which moment defines him most? The boy who resisted expectations and pursued his own path? The announcer reading casualty lists to a grieving nation? The television patriarch embodying moral certainty? Or the innovator quietly shaping the future of broadcasting? Perhaps no single moment suffices. Perhaps authority emerges not from isolated achievements but from continuity, from a life lived with consistency across changing circumstances. And what does this mean for us? What defines authority in our own lives? Is it recognition or resilience? Position or integrity? Performance or authenticity? Greene's journey suggests that true influence grows from character sustained over time. A voice that endures. If you experienced his work, you likely remember the voice first, measured, deliberate, and reassuring. But behind that voice lay decades of experience, hardship, discipline, responsibility, and reflection. Sometimes the voice the world needs is forged long before the world is listening. It is shaped in quiet struggles, private decisions, and unseen perseverance. Lorne Greene's life reminds us that destiny is not bestowed, it is constructed, through conviction, through resilience, through unwavering commitment to values. The shoemaker's son refused limitation. The broadcaster embraced responsibility. The performer embodied stability. The man became a symbol of trust. And perhaps that is why his legacy endures. Because beyond the roles, beyond the fame, beyond the history, he represented something universal, the possibility that authority grounded in integrity can transcend time. And that raises one final question. If authority is built through character, what kind of voice are we shaping for the future?